What's going on, everybody, and welcome back. So in this video we're going to be test flowing some injectors. So I've got my rig all set up here. I got the fuel pressure gauge hooked up. It's a Harbor Freight one. Just purchased this, hooked it up here right to the fuel rail test port, and I have a piece of hose. My first iteration didn't go so well. The line blew apart and it sprayed fuel all over the place. Not a huge fan. I'm going to try to not do that this time. It seems like it's working pretty good. I used a different hose here. This is actually rated for fuel, and this is a oil cooler hose, which is rated for like 400 psi, so that's totally fine. Or transmission oil cooler. So yeah, that's all said. That's all set, and I have all these guys taped down, and so that they will blow away or anything like that, or get pushed away. But this fuel pump is cranking. I think it's just because I have such a short amount of hose, no regulator, and no bleed off. It makes about 80 psi if I just leave it running, which is quite a lot of pressure for this fuel rail setup, but it seems like it's holding. And so I just kind of turn it on, let it prime, and as soon as it primes, I start the injectors, and then I turn off the injectors, and then I turn off this guy here. And the pressure doesn't bleed out of these guys. I've checked it. I let it sit with some pressure in it, so I can tell that none of these guys are leaking, which is good. I'll test them again in the future once I decap them, but the pressure eventually will bleed off 80 and it'll bleed back in through the pump, because I think it just makes its way past the pump and back into the tank. So yeah, based on that, I think we're ready to go. I made myself a little table over here on the whiteboard, and I'll show you guys what I got here. So I'm gonna do a 20-second test, and I'll just be multiplying that times 3, 20, 40, 60, and we'll get a per minute flow rate. And then once we get a per minute, we can multiply that to a per hour, and then we should be able to get an hour flow rate. And based on all of that, we should be able to find out exactly how many cc's these guys flow per minute, or exactly how many pounds an hour they flow, which is another measurement. So we'll be able to figure it all out. I'm just going to go ahead and see how many cc's they flow in a minute, and I think that's going to be the calculation we're going to use. So I'm going to flow the stock ones all here. I only have so many, and I still have to label the injectors, but that's how I plan on doing it. So I'm going to get started testing. Once you decap, you have this open sprayer, and that is said to flow much more fuel. So we'll put that to the test, but hopefully you guys saw the little spray last time. But this thing is wired up with a relay to the pump. So the power doesn't go through here, it goes through the relay, through the big wiring, all the way over to the pump. So after I flip the switch for the pump, it'll pressurize, and it runs up to 80 like I said. And then this is the switch here for the injectors, to turn the injectors on. So I'm going to go ahead and do another test, another 20-second test, and just see how accurate this whole setup is, and is it reliable. Can I make repeatable data with this test? And I do think that I can, as long as I have the same fuel pressure throughout, and that shouldn't change. So I'm going to go ahead and fire this thing up one more time, and you guys can hopefully watch. I'll get you guys a nice view here. Alright, this thing's holding 80 psi. We got no leaking going on after these guys have been turned off. We have maximum pressure going to them, so seems like they're all pretty solid, not leaking. Any splash up is just from hitting. So it looks like, when looking at them, they all flowed about the same as they did last time, so that's awesome. 20 seconds, 20.23. Reaction time was a little better this time, but barely, just by 0.1 of a second, 0.13 of a second. So it looks like our data should be pretty accurate. I'm going to take down these measurements, and we'll reference it, but I think we should be able to just do 1 or 2 tests with each injector in order to get our flow rates, and I think we can rely on that because it seems to be pretty accurate here. So I'm going to go ahead and take my measurements, and then I'll bleed off these injectors, get the pressure out of them for the night, and clean up my gasoline. So when I did my trial number 2, they flowed similarly, as in The two middle ones did flow less than the outer ones as well, but the gap sort of tightened. This one went up a little bit from the other one, and then this one actually went down, and this one stayed exactly the same, and this one went up slightly. So it seems like everything is all right around that range, but it seems to be pretty consistent as far as one injector flowing better than some, or like just, you know, these were around each other basically, and they were around each other again. These were kind of around each other, and they're around each other again. So we're looking pretty good there. So we got to see what everything flows. Obviously, this is just the stock ones. These are how many cc's they flow stock. So I'm going to go ahead and decap the ones that are in there now, and then we'll run those versus when they were stock. And I won't be able to have, I already decapped 5 through 8, so we won't be able to have the stock flow rate of that, but we could just compare this. I mainly care about the flow rate of the decap because I'm going to be decapping them. And I'd like to see if that translates. If these flow low with the caps on, do they also flow low when decapped? I'm curious if that's true, or if when you decap it, it eliminates that variable and they all sort of flow. They're all their own animals then. I'm not really sure. So we're going to see how that goes. I don't know if there's that many videos out there explaining exactly this process. I've seen a couple, but hopefully you guys understand my thought process. And yeah, I'd like to test all the injectors that are going to go in the turbo truck there. I'm going to put a cam in it first, like I said, and I'd like to put these injectors in there first, get it tuned on the decaps, and then I'll be able to drive it around for a while, perfect tuning with decaps, and then I'll move on to tuning with the cam, figure that out, and then we'll go turbo, figure that out. So it's just baby steps here, and I want to flow these, and I think, like I said, I want to flow the ones from the Honda as well. So if I get big into flowing injectors tomorrow or at some point this week, then I can flow the ones out of the Honda, see if they flow similarly. Maybe we have a low injector, a low flowing injector, and I don't ever want to melt a piston. If we ever do turn the boost up to 15 and we do melt a piston, that would be kind of silly, you know, because we could just check it, because now that I have the tester. So pretty pumped about it. I'm going to call it quits for tonight, but definitely made some good progress. This is called the sloppy stage 2, and this is going to go in the truck, so that should make it chop pretty good and give us that power we're looking for up in the higher RPM range. And then I got these springs, and springs are about 150, and these are from Pack valve springs, and this cam was about 250, and like I said, this is from Elgin, and this is from eBay. So hopefully this stuff works good. It says in here that they want you to use new lifters, and I was laughing because nobody does that. So that's yeah, we're gonna see how that goes. So that is for a later date, hopefully coming up soon. I'm excited about that. I've never had an aftermarket camshaft before, so that's gonna be pretty sweet. So stick around for that if you guys are interested. Then that's going in the orange one over there. So this is my uncle's truck. I just did a wheel bearing on that. His wheel was falling off, and we hooked him up with some nice black 18s. So now he's got a nice 50% life left on the tires, LTs on the 18-inch. So he's hooked up now with a new wheel bearing. So anyway, these injectors are the stock rail, or the stock still factory capped. You can see we got our plastic caps and the O-ring, and then you can see underneath we still have that 2-hold cap, whereas these guys are decapped. And once I get those off, I'll show you the difference. But I want to set these guys up. Once I get them in the rail, I'm going to have them all labeled. These guys, as I take them out, I'm going to set them in a certain order on the bench. And I think I'm going to try to figure out some good way to label all of these so that I know which is which. Might just use tape for now or something like that, but I just want to make sure that I know what's what so I don't mix them up, and I know how they all flow, because I'd like to know if there is any kind of correlation in how they flow now to how they flow when they're decapped. Are low flowing ones still low flowing after decapping, or is the cap part of the reason why they're low flow, partial cloggages and maybe variances in the caps or something like that? So we're going to see how they flow once they're all decapped. So I'm going to go ahead and pull these guys out and swap these injectors in. So it's been a couple days. I'm getting back to it. It's been raining non-stop. This Memorial Day weekend has just been total washout, unfortunately. Didn't get too much done, but I'm looking to get back and start flowing some injectors now. I did get all of them decapped, and I stopped on one of them where it got really close to the end, and I just want to show you guys what it looks like. This is my number 3 injector here, but you can see on here the cap is partially peeled, and that's what it looks like. See if I can, oh, just dropped it. It's sitting in the water down here. Let me get it. That is a little cap that we're trying to get off. So once you get that off, you can see that we have access to the open sprayer. So I'm gonna go ahead and check all these guys out. I went ahead and decapped the second set. This is the first set I flowed, the ones that were flowing stock, and this is my second set here. So I'm gonna go ahead and tape these guys down, pressurize the rail, and flow these guys just like I did 20 seconds before, and I'll see how these guys flow, and hopefully it's double or something near that, and I can record it on my little chart over there. And then we'll go ahead and do probably just two trials of this. As long as it's relatively consistent, I'll say that's pretty good for me. I just want to see that they flow around the same, and if I do 2 good trials and it looks good, then I'll go ahead and swap them out for these guys that I flowed originally, and I'll keep them all together, and I'll make sure that they all flow similarly. If they do, they're ready to slap in, and I want to test the ones in the car as well at some point. I don't know whether I'll do that today or tomorrow. I may have some time. We've got Monday off, so should be able to get a little bit more work done. And I want to look into doing some stuff to the truck. I think I might look into getting a gasket for the valley cover so I can do that. But yeah, I got lots to do on the truck. I got this nice stock exhaust system here. This is off of a brand new truck, so somebody didn't want this. They wanted a performance exhaust put on, so this was just kind of leftover garbage. So might as well put it to good use. I think I can have a really cool sleeper if we put this on the truck, and the truck is super quiet with a whole stock exhaust system, and it's brand new stock exhaust, so it should be pretty quiet and should flow pretty good too. So we're gonna see. I got one of these, even got one of these valves that the new trucks have, which are pretty crazy, that they have like a little valve in here, but it's able to shut it partially at idle, but when you wide open, it opens up the throttle, and that'll be cool. So I think it'll really redirect a lot of the air out the electric cutout that I have. So I think that'll be pretty sweet. So our rail pressure is kind of low at like 30, so we may have to figure that out. Let's see, hopefully we don't overfill. I think that's a pretty good test there. That was 19.95, so we were right there. So we're looking, and we definitely have one that flows lower than the rest. We got, looks like we have about, let's see, each of those is, that's 225, so 25. So we got a first one right here is going to be like about 210, 209. So guys, something that I'm looking at right now is, this is my flow test with the stock ones. So these are what they flowed, 95, and I multiplied it by 3 because I did a 20-second test, and it's kind of throwing me off a little bit because, first of all, I should have done 15 seconds, I think. Whereas this is a little bit more accurate. It's not as good because I can't use it for the decaps because I think that they'd get too full. These guys flow so much that they're ready to blow out of here after 15 seconds, and going to 20 seconds I think might make it overflow, and then the data would not be accurate. So I really can only go for 15 seconds. So it doesn't really change much. The math is different though, and I was originally going to go for that amount of time, but the problem was I noticed the rail pressure was dropping a lot. So flowing all 4 decaps makes the rail pressure drop quite a bit. So yeah, I know I did a little stock calculation here. I don't know if I showed this yet, but the stock injectors flow on average about 26.8 pounds an hour. So I'll do the calculation on the decaps. But noticing that the rail pressure was dropping, these are the flow rates I was getting for 1 minute, which is like not that many cc's. They should flow more than this, and I knew this is wrong. So I decided I'd test them 2 at a time. So now my 2 at a time test for 15 seconds, which means I'll be multiplying by 4 now instead of 3, is 192 times 4, and one of these even flowed 200 and 204, which is about 800 cc's, which is what they should be at. So these are my 4, 5, 6, and 7 injectors. So I'm just going to crunch the numbers, throw them up here as the decaps, and I'm going to be testing them 2 at a time now because the rail pressure is dropping on me. Makes it a little more work, but it's not too bad. Just want to make sure that we get accurate numbers here on what these guys are going to flow. Obviously the Walbro 450 I'll have in the tank will supply plenty of pressure for these injectors, even working up at that range. So we should be all set here. The injectors are going to be our limiting factor, I assume, not with the Walbro 450, because that should flow enough to make 5 or more 100 horse. So based on that, I'll show you guys the calculator and all that stuff, but I'm going to go ahead and keep flowing and get more test results here. I do have one low flowing one, this guy right here, and I think I'm going to have to lose him because he seems to continue to flow low every time, and only 173 where we have 200 over here. So that's quite a bit. When you multiply by 4, he's flowing quite a bit less. If I had thrown him in, we might have experienced some problems on that cylinder. So either we can clean him and get him to free up, or maybe we can't, and that's that. But we're going to have to check on this guy here and make sure that we find a good injector to put in there. So guys, I've been doing quite a bit of flowing, and I have these injectors labeled. I got just some little tags on them, 5, 6, 7, and 8, which I flowed first, and I have all the results over there that I will show you. I said I was going to show you, and then the GoPro camera died, so I just finished everything up. And then I have 1, 2, 3, and 4 here. So what I know right now is that number 1 flows like crazy. This is this injector. This guy is on some kind of steroids or something. He flows like 870 cc's, which is a lot. It could partially be because it's at the end of the rail, and that one may flow the most. I'm going to try to put the least flowing injector in this side and see if it flows more than it did prior, but I still think I'm going to ditch that injector. I have so many more here that I can test. I have 5 here that I'm going to decap and get ready to test soon, so I think it'll be pretty cool. I have 5 more lying around. Some of them may work, some of them may not work, but I just had them up in my attic from previously, so should be free and clear to test these guys. And I think I picked them up at the junkyard at one point or another, or we got them from something. So should be able to decap these guys and see how they flow. And I did have one low flowing injector, which was injector 6, and he flowed about 731. So that is pretty low as far as my standards. I have a sheet of paper inside, and I was trying to calculate the percentage, and about 5% off of the average, which I'll show you the stats now. The stats over here on the board. This is all of my math here. I kind of went a little crazy trying to do standard deviation, which is kind of too much for this, but basically the decapped injectors flowed on average 797 cc's, so about 797 or 8 or about 800, so right around 800 cc's. The stock ones flowed about 280 cc's, just from the results I had from these 2 sets here of 4. There's just 2 tests with the 4 injectors. So I just averaged that out to be about 280. That's all I really care about, is a decent average from stock. And then the decaps, I have the average of all 8 from 4 trials. So each set, each injector went through 4 trials. So you can see here, like our number 1, we have 860, 880, 856, 880, and 869. So that was our final total here, our average rather, not total, but this is the average on this one. And you can see the stocks are mixed in here, so it's a bit convoluted, but I just knew what I was adding up at the end. So based on that, I knew we had this guy continuously flowed low right off the bat, 692, 740, 748, 744, 731. So he may continue to get better as he gets cleaned out and has more fuel flowed through it, but I'm just, I'd rather just eliminate it if we have doubts about it. So everything else flowed pretty good. Inside I have like little percent errors that everything is off, but everything is basically within 5% except for this guy and this guy. They're closer to 10% off, almost 10% off. So this guy flows too much, and number 6 flows too little. So those are the 2 that we're going to try to eliminate. Everything else seems to fall within specifications here for being an 800cc injector, and I think we'll be all set with those. So that's cool to see, and we'll have to see what I decap there and see what comes out of the Honda as well. And maybe we do have a low flowing one in the Honda, or maybe we got a high flowing one, and we're running too rich in one hole. So that would be pretty interesting to see. And maybe if I am able to get 4 high flowing ones, then I can put them all in the Honda, or just any old match set would be good. I don't really care because I don't really max out the injectors in this car. It's not making that much power. It is still doing that miss at idle. I upgraded the ignition coil. Not sure what's going to go on with that. But I'm just going to try to drive it some more and see how it goes and see if the hot issues were fixed, because it really had some stumbly issues when it was formed. I messed with the tune a little bit. Maybe it was in the tune. I don't know. I'm driving myself crazy. But I'll eventually get it figured out and I'll let you guys know what happened. But yeah, this fuel injector video is pretty cool. I'm going to try to wrap it up tomorrow with the rest. But basically, like I was saying, I was hoping they would flow about 76 pounds an hour. And that is what this is saying. Stock, they flowed about 26.8 pounds an hour. And decapped, I did the calculations, about 76 pounds an hour. So that's pretty cool. I know it's a lot of numbers and a lot of bull crap, and I hope my math is accurate. It was pretty crazy because during the test, I wasn't able to run it for 20 seconds. With the stock injectors, I was able to flow 20 seconds no problem because they don't flow that much. But these decaps seem to flow way more. Like you can see, it's about 3 times as much, almost 3 times as much that the decaps flow over stock, which is pretty crazy, from 280 to about 800. So, you know, based on that, I wasn't able to run it for 20 seconds. I had to run it for 15 seconds. So I had to then multiply by 4 to get my values here per minute flow calculations for CC, which didn't really change it too much. It wasn't too bad. And we did have a little bit of splashing, which means the high flowing injectors maybe even didn't flow as much as they could have shown because they were splashing a little bit. But 15 seconds seemed to work, and I did 4 trials to try to eliminate the variable of myself personally. So hopefully you guys enjoy this, and this is some pretty good data for you guys to chew through. But I'm gonna, in the meantime, try to find some better injectors. But you guys know the process, you know what I'm doing. So I think that's going to cap it off for this video. So if you guys are enjoying this process, let me know, and give it a thumbs up and subscribe, because, you know, this stuff is definitely a lot of work. I'm not just doing it for you guys, I'm doing it for me, but I think it's kind of cool to show you guys the process here of flowing injectors. And this is what they're doing to your injectors. They have obviously a better test rig and probably more reliable, better numbers, and seem more official, but we're getting it done here in the garage, and we'll have the same result, I promise. It's all the same stuff, and we're gonna get it done. So thanks for watching, guys. Stay tuned, and yeah, peace out. See more of this car coming up soon. I got center caps. Gonna get some lug nuts coming. Gonna get all the little goodies. But yeah, I'm gonna try to drive it again this week.